The Mafia boss's baby wouldn't stop screaming on the plane until a single mom hummed a lullaby, his dead wife's secret song that no one else should know. He's convinced she holds the key to his wife's mysterious death, and he's not letting her go until she remembers everything. The baby's screams cut through the cabin like a knife through silk. Harper Wells looked up from her paperback, her stomach tightening with that familiar maternal instinct that never quite shut off, even when her own 3-year-old son wasn't the one crying. Around her, passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some plugging in earbuds, others shooting irritated glances toward the first-class curtain where the wailing originated. "Jesus Christ," muttered the businessman beside her. "This is going to be a long flight." Harper said nothing. She'd learned long ago that men like him, expensive suit, wedding ring tan line but no actual ring, had never spent a night walking circles around a living room at 3 a.m. with a colicky infant. They didn't understand that a baby's cry was a language, and this one was screaming fear. The plane hadn't even taken off yet. Through the gap in the curtain, Harper caught a glimpse of broad shoulders in an immaculate black suit. The man holding the baby moved with the rigid control of someone unaccustomed to being helpless. His jaw was carved from stone, his dark hair swept back with expensive precision. Even from economy class, Harper could sense the tension radiating from him, and from the two men flanking him like human shields. "That's Leonardo Corvi," a woman across the aisle whispered to her companion, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw him at a charity gala last year. They say he runs half of Rome." "He runs more than Rome," her companion murmured back. "And you don't whisper about men like that. Not if you're smart." Harper's pulse quickened. She wasn't naive. She'd seen enough true crime documentaries during her lonely nights after Jake left. Leonardo Corvi. The name sparked recognition like a match in darkness. He was old money, new power, and the kind of man whose business dealings never quite made it into legitimate newspapers. The baby's cries escalated, now edged with that desperate pitch that meant something was truly wrong. A flight attendant emerged from first class, her smile strained to breaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We'll be underway shortly." But they wouldn't. Harper could see it in the attendant's eyes, the same helpless panic she'd seen in her own mirror during those first impossible months with Mason, when nothing worked and everything hurt and she'd been so achingly alone. The businessman beside her groaned. "Someone needs to do something about that." Harper closed her book. Her hands were already moving before her brain caught up, unbuckling her seatbelt with the muscle memory of 1,000 interrupted moments. Mason was safely with her mother in Queens for the week, her first solo trip in 3 years. She should stay in her seat. Mind her business. Men like Leonardo Corvi didn't need help from single moms in clearance rack jeans. But that baby did. She stood, smoothing down her sweater, and walked toward first class before courage could abandon her. One of Corvi's men, tall, scar bisecting his left eyebrow, stepped into her path immediately. "Ma'am, you need to return to your seat." "I'm a labor and delivery nurse," Harper said quietly, which wasn't quite true anymore, but had been for 5 years before budget cuts and corporate restructuring. "I might be able to help. Mr. Corvi doesn't need." "Let her through." The voice came from behind the curtain, low and rough as gravel. The kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to be obeyed. The bodyguard hesitated, then stepped aside. Harper pushed through the curtain and stopped. Leonardo Corvi was even more striking up close, late 30s, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman coins. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark, intelligent, and currently holding an emotion she recognized all too well, the particular terror of a parent who can't fix their child's pain. The baby in his arms couldn't have been more than 2 months old, her tiny face purple with distress, fists pumping frantically. "May I?" Harper asked, keeping her voice soft, non-threatening. Leonardo's eyes narrowed, assessing her with the quick calculation of a man who'd survived by reading people. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then, with visible reluctance, he shifted the baby toward her. The moment Harper's hands closed around the small, warm body. Something shifted. She brought the infant to her shoulder, one hand supporting the head, the other making small circles on her back. The baby's crying stuttered, confused by the change. And then Harper did something she hadn't planned, something that rose from a memory she'd almost forgotten. She hummed. The melody was old, wordless, something she'd heard years ago in a hospital delivery room during the graveyard shift. A woman with an Italian accent, her voice weak from labor, had sung it to her newborn daughter, while Harper had checked vitals and cleaned up. The tune had been so hauntingly beautiful that Harper had found herself humming it weeks later to her own baby boy. The effect was instantaneous. The baby's cries dissolved into hiccups, then silence. Her tiny body relaxed against Harper's shoulder, one small fist uncurling against her collarbone. Harper barely noticed. She was too focused on the man in front of her. Leonardo Corvi had gone completely still. His face had drained of color, his hands frozen in midair where they'd been ready to take his daughter back. He stared at Harper like she'd just spoken in tongues. "Where?" he said, and his voice came out strangled. "Did you learn that song?" Harper's throat went dry. A patient taught me. Years ago." "Why?" "That was my wife's lullaby." Each word was carved from ice. She made it up herself. Never wrote it down. Never sang it for anyone but me. The temperature in the cabin seemed to drop 10 degrees. "She sang it the day our daughter was born," Leonardo continued, taking a step closer. His men tensed, hands moving toward their jackets. "The day she died in childbirth. 3 weeks ago." Harper's mind raced. 3 weeks ago, she'd been in Queens, not in a delivery room. But years ago. "What was your wife's name?" Harper whispered. "Sophia." His eyes were black diamonds now, hard and cutting. Sophia Martinelli Corvi. The name hit Harper like a physical blow. No, it couldn't be. But she remembered now, remembered the woman in the hospital bed, remembered thinking it odd that such a beautiful, well-dressed woman was in their understaffed public hospital instead of somewhere private. Remembered the woman's fear, her whispered pleas to keep her location secret, her insistence that Harper not log certain details in the system. Remembered that the woman had given a false name. But that had been 9 months ago, and the woman had left with a healthy baby girl before Harper's shift ended. She'd thought it was just another complicated family situation, maybe domestic abuse, maybe witness protection. She'd respected the woman's privacy and moved on. Except now that woman was dead, and her husband, a man whose name made people whisper, was staring at Harper like she held answers to questions he hadn't yet asked. "Sit down," Leonardo said softly, and it wasn't a request. "We're going to talk. And you're going to tell me everything about the day you met my wife." The plane's engines roared to life. Harper realized, with a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning, that her simple flight home had just become something else entirely. Something dangerous. Harper's hands trembled as she held the now peaceful infant. Around them, the plane began its taxi toward the runway, but the first-class cabin felt frozen in time. Leonardo gestured to the empty seat beside him. Leather, spacious, worth more than Harper's monthly rent. His bodyguards positioned themselves in the aisle, blocking any view from economy. Creating a bubble. A cage. "I don't understand," Harper said, carefully settling into the seat while keeping the baby secure against her chest. "Your wife died 3 weeks ago in childbirth, but I met a woman 9 months ago who gave you that song?" Leonardo's voice was lethal in its quietness. "A song Sophia created when we first learned she was pregnant. She sang it to her belly every night." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and Harper could see the exhaustion carved into his features beneath the dangerous exterior. "She sang it the day she went into labor. The day I lost her." The plane accelerated, pressing Harper back into her seat. The baby, Isabella, she assumed, made a small, contented sound. "Mr. Corvi, I think there's been a terrible mistake. The woman I met couldn't have been your wife." "Describe her." Harper closed her eyes, pulling up the memory. Late 20s. Dark hair, almost black. brown eyes with gold flecks. She had a small birthmark here. Harper touched her own collarbone, shaped like a crescent moon. She was maybe 5'6", slender even at full term. She spoke with an accent, Italian, but her English was perfect. Educated. Leonardo's hand gripped the armrest hard enough that his knuckles went white. That's Sofia. But it can't be. The woman I met was 9 months pregnant and terrified. She checked in under the name Maria Rossi. She paid cash for everything and made me promise not to enter certain information into the hospital database. Harper's voice dropped to a whisper. She begged me to keep her location secret. She said someone was looking for her. Someone dangerous. The plane lifted off the ground, and Harper felt her stomach drop for reasons that had nothing to do with altitude. Leonardo was staring at her with an intensity that made her want to disappear into the leather seat. 9 months ago, my wife was 6 months pregnant. She was in Rome, under constant protection. She never left my sight except to visit her mother or attend her book club. His jaw tightened. Or so I believed. This doesn't make sense, Harper said. If she was 6 months along 9 months ago then this baby should be 3 months old. Not 3 weeks. Leonardo reached out slowly, his rough hand gentle as he touched his daughter's tiny fist. But according to the birth certificate, according to the hospital in Rome, according to everyone who was there, Sofia went into labor 3 weeks ago. Unexpectedly early. And she died from complications before I could reach the hospital. Harper's nursing instincts kicked in, her eyes scanning the infant in her arms. How much does she weigh? 4.2 kilograms. That's over 9 pounds. Harper looked up sharply. Mr. Corvey, 3-week-old babies born prematurely don't weigh 9 pounds. They don't have this much muscle tone. They don't track movement like this. She watched as Isabella's eyes followed her father's hand. This baby is at least 2 months old. Maybe closer to 3-inch. The air between them crackled with implications. Someone lied to you, Harper continued, her heart pounding. Someone hid your daughter for months. And the woman I met, if she was your wife, she was hiding too. From someone she was terrified of. Leonardo stood abruptly, pacing the small first-class area like a caged panther. His men watched him carefully, but kept their distance. Sofia disappeared for 4 days, 9 months ago. She said she'd gone to a spa retreat in Tuscany with her cousin. She seemed different when she returned. Quieter. More careful. He turned back to Harper. I thought she was just worried about the pregnancy. She'd had a miscarriage before. I thought I was protecting her by keeping her close. What if she was protecting you? Harper heard herself say. What if she found out something, and hiding was the only way to keep you both safe? From who? I don't know. But she was afraid enough to use a fake name in a public hospital in Queens instead of going to whatever private facility you would have arranged. Harper looked down at Isabella, who had fallen into a peaceful sleep. She was afraid enough to let strangers think she was someone else entirely. Leonardo returned to his seat, closer now, his presence overwhelming in the confined space. The nurse who delivered Isabella, the one in Rome, she quit the day after Sofia died. Left the country, they said. Moved to South America. That's not suspicious at all, Harper muttered. The doctor who signed the death certificate retired early. Very early. He's 42. Leonardo's eyes met hers. And the morgue reported a mix-up with Sofia's body. By the time it was discovered, she'd already been cremated. Horror crawled up Harper's spine. You're saying? I'm saying I never saw my wife's body. I was told it was too traumatic, that I should remember her as she was. His voice cracked, just barely. I'm saying that the woman who died might not have been Sofia at all. The plane hit turbulence, and Harper gripped the armrest, holding Isabella tighter. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. You don't know me. Leonardo looked at her with eyes that had seen too much darkness. Because you know something, even if you don't realize it yet. You saw Sofia when she was hiding. You know what she was afraid of. He leaned closer. And because my daughter recognizes your voice. That song, Sofia must have taught it to you for a reason. Harper's mind spun. She'd thought it was just a kind gesture, one desperate woman helping another through labor. But what if it had been more? What if Sophia had been leaving breadcrumbs? I need you to remember everything, Leonardo said quietly. Every word Sophia said. Every person who came into that room. Every detail, no matter how small. And if I can't remember? His smile was sharp as broken glass. Then we find another way. Because someone took 3 months of my daughter's life from me. Someone may have murdered my wife and covered it up. The plane leveled out above the clouds. And I intend to find out who. The seatbelt sign blinked off with a soft chime. Within seconds, one of Leonardo's men, the one with the scar, appeared beside Harper's seat. Ms. Wells, he said, his tone professionally neutral. Mr. Corby would like you to join Marco in the galley. He has some questions. It wasn't a request. Harper glanced at Leonardo, who was now holding Isabella, his expression unreadable. I thought we were talking here. Marco is better at extracting details, Leonardo said softly. He'll help you remember. The word extracting made Harper's blood run cold, but she unbuckled her seatbelt and followed the scarred man, Marco, apparently, to the small galley area at the front of first class. Another bodyguard materialized, blocking the view from the main cabin. Marco leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Up close, he looked like he'd stepped out of a mob movie, sharp suit, sharper eyes, and the kind of face that had probably scared confessions out of people before. So, nurse, he began, his Brooklyn accent thick. Tell me about the hospital. Which one was it? Queens General. The public one on Northern Boulevard. Harper wrapped her arms around herself. I worked labor and delivery. Night shift. 9 months ago. That would be February. Marco pulled out his phone, fingers flying across the screen. What date? Harper closed her eyes, thinking. February 14th. Valentine's Day. I remember because I'd just finalized my divorce papers that morning. Some Valentine's gift. Something flickered in Marco's expression, not quite sympathy, but a recognition of pain. What time did Sophia arrive? Around midnight. She came in through the ER, said her contractions were getting close. But when I examined her, Harper paused, the memory sharpening. She wasn't in active labor. Maybe early labor, but she had hours to go. I told her she could go home and come back, but she refused. She was terrified of leaving. Did she say why?
No.
She just kept looking at the door like someone was going to break through any second. Harper's voice dropped. She made me promise not to call anyone. Not the father, not family. No one. She said one call could kill them both. Marco's jaw tightened. Both meaning her and the baby. That's what I assumed. But now Harper trailed off as the implications crystallized. Now I think she meant her and someone else. Maybe her boss. Marco typed rapidly on his phone. How long was she there? About 6 hours. She delivered at 6:47 a.m. Fast labor, once it really started, only pushed for 20 minutes. The baby was healthy. 7 pounds, 8 ounces. Perfect APGAR scores. And then she left. Harper met his eyes. By 9 a.m., she was gone. She dressed, took her baby, and walked out against medical advice. I tried to stop her, told her she needed at least a day of observation, but she wouldn't listen. She said staying was more dangerous than leaving. Marco's expression darkened. Did anyone visit her during those 6 hours?
No.
She was completely alone. I thought it was strange. Most women have someone with them, even if it's just a friend. But she was adamant about being isolated. She even asked me to keep the lights low so no one passing by would notice the room was occupied. Smart girl, Marco muttered. She was hiding in plain sight. Public hospital, fake name, cash payment. No trail. She did give me something though, Harper said suddenly, the memory surfacing. After the baby was born, while I was cleaning her up, she pressed something into my hand. A folded piece of paper. She said,
Marco Stratton.
What did she say? She said, if anything happens to me, this matters. Keep it safe. Harper's heart hammered. But I was exhausted, and she seemed paranoid from the pain meds. I thought she was just being dramatic. I stuck the paper in my locker and forgot about it. Is it still there? I don't know. I was laid off 3 months later. They boxed up my locker contents and shipped them to my apartment. I never went through all of it. It's probably... A sharp cry cut through the galley. Both Harper and Marco turned toward first class, where Isabella's peaceful sleep had shattered into distressed wailing. But this wasn't the angry crying from before. This was different. Worse. Harper pushed past Marco and rushed back to Leonardo's seat. The baby's face was turning red, her tiny mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. No sound was coming out anymore, just a horrible wheezing. She was fine, Leonardo said, his composure cracking. She was sleeping and then she just... Harper didn't wait for permission. She scooped Isabella from his arms and flipped her face down along her forearm, supporting the baby's head with her hand. With her other hand, she delivered 5 quick back blows between the shoulder blades. Nothing. The baby's lips were turning blue. Jesus Christ, Marco breathed behind her. Harper flipped Isabella face up, placing 2 fingers on her tiny chest, delivering 5 quick compressions. The cabin around her disappeared. There was only the baby, only the technique drilled into her during hundreds of training hours. Back blows. Chest thrusts. Back blows. Chest thrusts. On the 3rd cycle, something small and white flew from Isabella's mouth, a piece of lint, maybe from a blanket. The baby gasped, then screamed, that beautiful, angry sound of air-filling lungs. Harper held her close, supporting her head, her own hands shaking with adrenaline. It's okay. You're okay. Breathe, sweet girl. Just breathe. Leonardo had gone pale as death. What happened? She aspirated something. Probably lint or a thread. Harper kept her voice calm, even as her heart raced. Babies explore everything with their mouths. It happens fast. She could have died. But she didn't. Harper looked up at him, and for the first time saw past the dangerous mob boss to the terrified father underneath. She's fine now. Leonardo reached out, his hand covering both Harper's and Isabella's, steadying them. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You saved her life. Twice now. No, his grip tightened. On this plane, you've done more for my daughter than anyone has in 3 weeks. You calmed her. You knew a song my dead wife supposedly never shared. And now this, his dark eyes locked onto hers. You're not going back to economy. You're staying here. And when we land in New York... I'm going home, Harper interrupted firmly. To my son. This is your world, Mr. Corvey. Not mine. Leonardo's smile was sad. Ms. Wells, the moment you hummed that lullaby, you became part of my world. And I think you know more than you realize about why my wife died. The plane hit another patch of turbulence. Harper looked down at Isabella, now peaceful again in her arms, and felt the weight of something much larger settling on her shoulders. That piece of paper. Sophia's final message. Whatever was written on it, Harper had a terrible feeling it was going to change everything. 6 hours later, JFK Airport materialized through the window, a sprawl of lights against the dark Atlantic coast. Harper had spent most of the flight in first class, Isabella sleeping peacefully in her arms while Leonardo made hushed phone calls in Italian. She'd caught enough words to know he was mobilizing people, investigating, preparing for something. We'll be landing shortly, the flight attendant announced, her voice carefully avoiding any mention of the earlier chaos. Marco appeared beside Harper's seat. When we land, you stay with us. Don't make any calls. Don't text anyone. Not until Mr. Corvey says it's safe. I need to check on my son, Harper protested. My mother's watching him, and she'll worry if... One text, Leonardo interrupted, not looking up from his phone. Tell her you landed safely, and you'll call tomorrow. Nothing else. Harper's fingers tightened on her own phone. This is kidnapping. This is protection. Leonardo finally met her eyes. 2 of my men were in economy. They identified 3 individuals who boarded in Rome with fake passports. All 3 watched you the moment you entered first class. Ice crawled down Harper's spine. Watched me? You became interesting the second my daughter stopped crying. He handed his phone to Marco, then turned fully toward Harper. In my world, being interesting is dangerous. And you, Ms. Wells, have become very interesting. The plane touched down with a jolt. Around them, passengers immediately stood, grabbing bags and jostling for position. But in first class, Leonardo's men formed a tight perimeter. Here's what's going to happen, Leonardo said quietly, taking Isabella from Harper's arms with surprising gentleness. Marco and Tony will escort you off the plane. Stay between them. Don't look at anyone. Don't acknowledge anyone. We'll have cars waiting at the gate. And if I refuse? Leonardo's expression hardened. Then you'll be dead before you reach baggage claim, and whoever wants you dead will go after your son, next to tie up loose ends. Is that clear enough? Harper's breath caught. You're lying. You're trying to scare me into. Gate C7, Marco interrupted, reading from his phone. 2 men just repositioned there. Both carrying. Both watching our gate on the monitors. Leonardo stood, cradling Isabella against his shoulder. I don't lie about threats, Ms. Wells. I've survived this long by taking them seriously, he nodded to Marco. Move. They exited the plane in formation, Tony in front, then Harper, then Marco, with Leonardo and Isabella in the center, flanked by 2 more men she hadn't noticed during the flight. The jetway felt claustrophobic, and Harper's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. 12 hours ago, she'd been a divorced single mom catching a plane home from a work conference. Now she was surrounded by armed bodyguards, holding information about a dead woman, and apparently someone wanted her dead for it. They emerged into the gate area. Harper scanned the crowd instinctively, tired travelers, bored gate agents, a custodian emptying trash cans. Everything looked normal. Too normal. There, Tony muttered, his hand moving inside his jacket. 3 o'clock. Gray suit. Earpiece. Harper's eyes flicked right. A man in an expensive gray suit stood near a coffee kiosk, phone to his ear, but his gaze was locked on their group. When he noticed Harper looking, he smiled. It was the coldest smile she'd ever seen. Keep moving, Marco urged, his hand on Harper's elbow, propelling her forward. They were 20 feet from the main corridor when Harper saw the second man, this one in maintenance coveralls, pushing a cleaning cart directly into their path. He looked up, and his hand disappeared into the cart. Down, Tony roared. The world exploded into chaos. Glass shattered as bullets punched through the airport windows. Screams erupted as travelers dove for cover. Harper felt herself thrown to the ground, Marco's body shielding her as the marble floor bit into her knees. More gunfire, sharp, controlled bursts from Leonardo's men returning fire. Move, move. Leonardo's voice cut through the panic. He was crouched low, one arm protecting Isabella, the other drawing a weapon from his jacket with practiced ease. Harper's nursing training kicked in through the terror. Stay low. Protect your head. Don't freeze. Marco hauled her to her feet and shoved her toward a service corridor. Behind them, the man in gray suit was down, blood pooling beneath him. The maintenance worker had abandoned his cart and was running toward the parking garage, Tony in pursuit. They burst through a door marked, "Authorized personnel only," and into a concrete stairwell. The sounds of chaos faded behind them, replaced by their ragged breathing and pounding footsteps. Garage level, Leonardo commanded, taking the stairs 2 at a time despite carrying Isabella. The baby was screaming again, terrified by the noise, and Harper's heart broke at the sound. They hit the parking garage at a full run. Black SUVs screeched around the corner, doors already opening. Strong hands grabbed Harper and practically threw her into the back seat. Leonardo dove in beside her. Isabella clutched to his chest. Marco jumped into the front passenger seat. Go, he shouted, and the driver floored it. Harper looked back through the rear window. 2 more SUVs followed them, boxing them in. In the distance, she could see airport security flooding toward the terminal, lights flashing. What the hell just happened, she gasped. The Calabrese family, Leonardo said grimly, checking Isabella for injuries with shaking hands. They're rivals from New Jersey. They've been pushing into my territory for months. But why shoot at me?
I'm nobody.
Leonardo looked at her, and his expression was grim. Because someone told him you matter. Someone who knows about Sophia, about that night 9 months ago. He secured Isabella in a car seat that had been waiting in the vehicle. Someone who wants to make sure whatever Sophia told you dies with you. The SUV merged onto the expressway, speeding into the night. Where are you taking me? Harper demanded. Somewhere safe. Leonardo pulled out his phone, already dialing. Somewhere we can figure out what Sophia gave you and why people are willing to kill for it. Harper thought of her son, safe at home with her mother. Thought of her quiet life, her tiny apartment, her boring routine. All of it felt like it belonged to someone else now. I want to go home, she whispered. Leonardo's laugh was bitter. Ms. Wells, I don't think either of us are going home for a while. The Brooklyn Bridge loomed ahead, its cables cutting across the night sky like a web. And Harper realized she was caught in it. The SUV pulled up to a narrow brownstone in Brooklyn, tucked between a laundromat and a closed bodega. Nothing about it screamed mob safe house, which was probably the point. The street was quiet, lined with parked cars and flickering streetlights. Inside. Now, Marco opened Harper's door, scanning the street with predatory alertness. The interior was surprisingly normal, hardwood floors, modest furniture, a kitchen that smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. But Harper noticed the reinforced door, the security cameras in every corner, the windows with steel shutters that Marco immediately locked into place. Leonardo carried Isabella to a back bedroom, murmuring softly in Italian. For a moment, he was just a father comforting his frightened child, not a man who'd just shot at attackers in an airport terminal. Harper sank onto the couch, her hands still trembling. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a crushing reality. People had tried to kill her. Actually tried to kill her. Bullets had missed her head by inches. Here, Tony appeared with a glass of water and 2 pills. For the shock. They're just Xanax. I'm not taking pills from the mob, Harper said automatically. Tony shrugged and pocketed them. Suit yourself. But you might want something when the panic attack hits. They always do. He was right. 10 minutes later, Harper's breathing went shallow, her vision tunneled, and she barely made it to the bathroom before vomiting. When she emerged, shaking and pale, Leonardo was waiting in the hallway. Sit, he commanded, guiding her back to the couch. This time she didn't argue. He settled across from her, his jacket removed, gun visible in a shoulder holster. Without the armor of his suit and composure, he looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, tension in every line of his body. I want answers, Harper said, her voice hoarse. Real answers. Why did your wife hide her pregnancy? Why did someone fake her death? And why the hell are people trying to kill me for humming a lullaby? Leonardo leaned forward, elbows on his knees. 6 months ago, my cousin Marco, not this Marco, a different one, started questioning my leadership. He thought I was getting soft, too focused on legitimate business instead of traditional operations. His jaw tightened. He wanted to prove I couldn't protect my own family. So, he came after Sophia? Not directly. He's too smart for that. Leonardo's fingers drummed against his knee, the first nervous gesture Harper had seen from him. But someone told him Sophia was pregnant. Someone in my inner circle. And suddenly she became a target. A way to hurt me. Harper's stomach twisted. Sophia found out. She must have. She was brilliant, smarter than me in many ways. She must have discovered the threat and realized the only way to protect our child was to disappear. His voice cracked slightly. To make everyone believe she lost the baby. But she was 6 months pregnant when she disappeared. She couldn't fake a miscarriage at 6 months. No, Leonardo agreed. But she could fake medical records showing she'd miscarried at 12 weeks. With enough money and the right connections, hospital records can be adjusted. Harper thought of the woman she'd met, terrified, alone, using a fake name. So she hid for 3 months. had the baby in secret. And then what? She couldn't stay hidden forever with an infant. She planned to come back. Leonardo stood, pacing like a caged animal. The threat should have been neutralized by then. My cousin Marco was arrested on federal charges, racketeering, money laundering. He's facing 20 years. With him in prison, Sofia should have been safe to return. But someone killed her anyway. Someone who had more to lose than my cousin did. Leonardo turned to face her, his expression dark with fury and grief. Someone who knew that if Sofia came back, if she talked about what she'd learned while hiding, it would destroy them. Harper's mind raced through the implications. The nurse who quit. The doctor who retired. The morgue mix-up. All of it was orchestrated to hide what really happened. And to hide when it really happened, Leonardo added. The death certificate says 3 weeks ago. But I think Sofia died months ago, probably right after giving birth. Someone kept Isabella hidden, feeding her formula, keeping her alive until they could stage the whole thing in Rome. The horror of it made Harper dizzy. Who would do that to a baby? Keep her hidden for months? Someone who needed time to cover their tracks. Someone who needed to make sure all loose ends were tied up before anyone started asking questions. Leonardo's eyes locked onto hers. Someone who didn't know about you. About me? You were the loose end they didn't anticipate. Sofia trusted you. She gave you something, that piece of paper. And now that I've found you, now that you've proven you were with Sofia that night, you're a threat. Harper's head was spinning. This is insane. I'm a nurse. I deliver babies and go home and make mac and cheese for my kid. I don't have anything to do with mob wars or conspiracies or... You have everything to do with it now. Leonardo sat beside her, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. That paper Sofia gave you, it's not just random paranoia. She gave it to you, for a reason. She chose you specifically. Why me? Because you were safe. Because you were outside my world. Because, he paused, studying her face. Because maybe she knew that if anything happened to her, you'd be the kind of person who'd want to make it right. Harper thought of Sofia, desperate, terrified, trusting a stranger with whatever secret had gotten her killed. I need to find that paper. It's in a box somewhere in my apartment. Storage boxes from my old locker at the hospital. Then we get it tonight. Leonardo pulled out his phone. I'll send men. No, Harper grabbed his wrist, surprising them both. If people are watching my apartment, if they're waiting for me to lead them to whatever Sofia hid, your men showing up will confirm I have something valuable. Let me go. I'll be quick in and out. My son isn't even there. He's at my mother's house in Queens. Nobody would expect me to go home first. Leonardo looked at her like she'd grown a second head. Absolutely not. You're staying here where you're protected. Then that paper stays hidden, and we never know why your wife died. Harper met his gaze steadily. I'm going. With or without your permission. Because you're right, Sofia trusted me. And I won't let her down. For a long moment, they stared at each other. A battle of wills between a mob boss accustomed to being obeyed and a single mother who'd learned long ago that sometimes survival meant taking risks. Finally, Leonardo cursed in Italian.
Fine.
But Marco goes with you. And Tony. And you follow every single instruction they give you. Understood? Harper nodded, relief and terror mixing in equal measure. 1 hour, Leonardo continued. You have 1 hour to find that paper and get back here. After that, I'm assuming you're compromised and sending in an army. Harper stood, her legs steadier now. 1 hour. I can do that. Leonardo caught her hand as she turned to leave. Ms. Wells, Harper. Be careful. Whatever's on that paper, people have killed for it. They'll kill again. Harper squeezed his hand once, surprising herself. Then let's make sure Sofia's death wasn't for nothing. As she headed toward the door with Marco and Tony flanking her, Harper caught a glimpse of Isabella sleeping peacefully in the back bedroom. That baby had already lost her mother. Harper would be damned if she lost her father too. Change of plans, Marco said as they drove through Brooklyn. Before we hit your apartment, we're making a stop. Harper looked up from her phone, where she'd just sent her mother a carefully worded text saying she'd been delayed. What stop? Queen's General. The hospital where you met Sophia. Marco glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Mr. Corby wants us to pull the records from that night. See who else was working, who might have seen something. The records were probably scrubbed, Harper said. If someone went through the trouble of faking Sophia's death in Rome, they wouldn't leave a trail in Queens. Probably. But we check anyway. They pulled into the Queen's General parking lot just after midnight. The hospital loomed against the dark sky, its emergency entrance blazing with fluorescent light. Harper had spent so many night shifts here, had walked through those doors exhausted and caffeinated and desperate for her paycheck. Now it felt like enemy territory. Stay close, Tony muttered, his hand inside his jacket as they entered through the main entrance. The lobby was nearly empty, just a security guard doing crossword puzzles and a tired-looking woman at the information desk. Harper led them to the administrative offices on the third floor. Her old ID badge still worked on the elevator, which either meant hospital security was lazy or someone had intentionally kept her access active. Neither possibility was comforting. The administrative wing was dark, lit only by emergency exit signs. Harper's footsteps echoed on the linoleum as she navigated to the records room. The door was locked, but Marco produced a set of lockpicks and had it open in 30 seconds. "Misspent youth," he said with a shrug. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the walls, though most records were digital now. Harper moved to the computer terminal and logged in with her old credentials. To her surprise, they still worked. February 14th, she muttered, pulling up the labor and delivery logs. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory from hundreds of shift reports. The screen loaded. Every entry from February 14th was gone. What the hell? Harper clicked through to the backup files, the archived records, even the billing department's duplicate logs. All of them showed the same thing. February 14th existed, but every birth record, every patient admission, every detail from that 24-hour period had been completely erased. Professional job, Tony observed, looking over her shoulder. Not just deleted. Scrubbed from multiple backup systems simultaneously. That takes serious IT knowledge and administrative access. Harper's hands shook on the keyboard. Someone really didn't want any record of Sophia being here. Who else was working that night? Marco asked. You remember any names? Harper closed her eyes, thinking back. Dr. Patricia Mendez was the attending. She was a competent but burned out. Always complained about overtime. There was another nurse, Keisha Williams. She covered my break around 3 a.m. Anyone else? A resident. Young guy, fresh out of med school. I can't remember his name, but he had red hair and a Boston accent. He helped with one of the other deliveries that night. Marco was already on his phone, typing notes. We'll track them down. Harper opened her eyes and navigated to the employee directory. She pulled up Dr. Mendez's profile first. Status: retired. Date: May 15th, just 3 months after Sophia's delivery. That's weird, Harper murmured. Patricia was 48 years old and constantly talking about needing to work another 15 years to afford retirement. She wouldn't have retired voluntarily. She pulled up Keisha's profile next. Status: transferred. Location: Lagos, Nigeria. Date: April 2nd. Keisha had 3 kids in New York schools, Harper said, her voice rising. She was a single mom like me. There's no way she'd move to Nigeria. Tony leaned closer to the screen. Try the resident. Harper searched for red-haired residents who'd worked in February. She found him, Dr. Ryan Mitchell. Status: deceased. Date: March 8th. Cause: car accident. The room went cold. Everyone who was there that night is gone, Harper whispered. Dead, disappeared, or paid off. Everyone except me. And they didn't know about you, Marco said grimly, because you were laid off before they could tie up that loose end. You fell through the cracks. Harper's stomach churned. But now that Leonardo found me, now they know. And they're scrambling. Marco pulled out his phone. Boss needs to hear this. While Marco stepped into the hallway to make the call, Harper continued searching the database, looking for anything that might have survived the purge. She checked pharmacy records. If Sophia had been given any medications, there might be a billing trace. She checked the security logs. Maybe there was footage from that night. Everything was gone. Professionally, thoroughly erased. But then Harper remembered something. She'd taken a photo that night, not of Sophia, but of the baby. She'd done it as a personal backup for cases where she suspected the parents might be in trouble. Domestic abuse, custody issues. She'd kept them on her phone, encrypted, just in case. Her old phone. The one she'd replaced 6 months ago after dropping it in the toilet. The one currently sitting in a drawer in her apartment. "Marco," she called out. "We need to go to my apartment."
Now.
He stepped back into the room. "What did you find?" "Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But we need." The lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the administrative wing. Harper's heart leaped into her throat. "Don't move," Tony whispered, and she heard the unmistakable sound of a gun being drawn. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple sets. Moving with purpose toward the records room. Marco's hand found Harper's arm in the darkness, pulling her toward what she hoped was a back exit. "There's 4 of them," he breathed in her ear. "We go quiet. Stay behind me." They moved through the dark office, navigating by memory and the faint green glow of exit signs. Harper's breath was loud in her own ears, her heart hammering. Behind them, the footsteps grew closer. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, sweeping the room they'd just left. Marco eased open a door, supply closet or bathroom. Harper couldn't tell. They slipped inside just as the footsteps reached the records room. "She was here," a man's voice said, thick with a New Jersey accent. "Computer's still warm. Check the elevators." "She's probably already gone." "Then we go to her apartment. The boss wants her and whatever Martinelli gave her. Dead or alive, but preferably dead." Harper pressed her hand over her mouth to muffle her breathing. In the darkness, she felt Tony's solid presence beside her, his gun drawn, waiting. The footsteps past their hiding spot kept going. After an eternity, Marco risked opening the door a crack. The hallway was clear. He grabbed Harper's hand and pulled her toward the stairwell, moving fast but silent. They burst into the parking garage at a run. The SUV was right where they'd left it, and Tony had them moving before Harper had even closed her door. "They're going to my apartment," Harper gasped. "They said." "I heard." Marco was already calling Leonardo. "We have a bigger problem. They know about the paper. They know Sophia gave you something. And they're willing to hit a hospital to find it." Harper looked back at Queen's General, disappearing behind them. She'd spent 5 years in that building, had delivered over 200 babies within those walls. She'd thought of it as a place of life, of new beginnings. Now it felt like a tomb. A place where everyone who'd witnessed Sophia's secret had been systematically silenced. Everyone except her. And if those men reached her apartment first, if they found that old phone with its encrypted photos. "Drive faster," she urged Tony.
Please.
"Drive faster." The SUV accelerated into the night, racing against enemies Harper couldn't see, but knew were closing in. Whatever was on that piece of paper, whatever Sophia had written in her final desperate act. People had killed for it before. And they were ready to kill again. Harper's apartment building was a modest 5-story walk-up in Astoria, sandwiched between a Greek restaurant and a dry cleaner. She'd lived there for 3 years, knew every creaky floorboard, every neighbor's routine. It had always felt safe. Not anymore. "3rd floor, apartment 3C, Harper said as Tony pulled into the underground parking garage. "My storage boxes are in the hall closet. We're not going through the front," Marco said, scanning the garage. "Too exposed." Service entrance through the garage, up the back stairs. The garage was poorly lit, with flickering fluorescent tubes casting long shadows between concrete pillars. Only a handful of cars were parked at this hour, mostly beaters belonging to the building's working-class tenants. Tony parked near the service elevator. Marco got out first, gun drawn, checking corners.
Clear.
Let's move. They were halfway to the elevator when Harper heard it, the distinctive chirp of a car alarm being disarmed. She turned. 4 men emerged from behind a panel van, all armed. The same New Jersey accent from a hospital. Nobody moves. Marco shoved Harper behind him. Get to the stairs. Gunfire erupted, deafening in the enclosed space. Harper ran, her body moving on pure survival instinct. Bullets sparked off concrete pillars. Behind her, Marco and Tony returned fire, the muzzle flashes lighting up the garage like lightning. Harper hit the stairwell door and yanked it open. A hand grabbed her shoulder from inside. She screamed. "It's me," Leonardo's voice. He pulled her through and slammed the door. "Are you hurt?" "No, but Marco and Tony. They can handle themselves." Leonardo was already moving up the stairs, one hand gripping Harper's wrist, the other holding his gun. 2 more of his men materialized behind them, providing cover. More gunfire echoed from the garage, along with shouting and the squeal of tires. They reached the 3rd floor. Harper's hands shook as she fumbled for her keys. Leonardo took them from her and unlocked the door himself, entering first, gun raised. "Clear," he said after a tense moment. Harper rushed inside, heading straight for the hall closet. Her apartment looked exactly as she'd left it. Toys scattered across the living room floor, Mason's crayon drawings stuck to the fridge, dishes in the sink. The mundane debris of normal life, now violated by violence. She yanked open the closet and started pulling down boxes. "These are from the hospital. I never unpacked them because I was so angry about being laid off." Leonardo holstered his gun and helped her, moving with surprising gentleness around her things. They worked in silence, the sound of distant sirens growing closer. "Third box," Harper said, tearing open the tape. Inside were jumbled belongings, coffee mug, spare scrubs, hand sanitizer, personal items from her locker. She dug through frantically, her fingers closing on a small zippered pouch. Inside the pouch was a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. Harper's hands trembled as she unfolded it. The writing was in Italian, cramped and hurried, but there was also a list of numbers. Account numbers, maybe. And at the bottom, a single name in English. Vincent Martelli. "Who's Vincent Martelli?" Harper asked. Leonardo's face had gone white. "My underboss. My father's oldest friend. The man I trusted more than anyone except Sophia." His voice was hollow. "He's Isabella's godfather." The implications crashed down like a collapsing building. "He's the one who betrayed you," Harper whispered. "He's the one who threatened Sophia. He's been with my family for 30 years." Leonardo took the paper with shaking hands. "He was there when I was born. When my father died. When I took over. The apartment door exploded inward. Leonardo moved like lightning, shoving Harper toward the bedroom while simultaneously raising his gun. 2 men rushed in, not the New Jersey crew from the garage, but professionals in tactical gear. Leonardo fired 3 times. 1 man went down. The second dove behind the couch. "Bedroom window." Leonardo shouted at Harper. "Fire escape." Harper ran, her mind blank with terror. She could hear more footsteps pounding up the stairwell, more voices. How many were there? She reached the bedroom window and yanked it open. The fire escape clung to the building's exterior, rust orange, and probably not up to code. She climbed out, the metal cold under her hands. Behind her, more gunfire. The sound of furniture breaking. Leonardo cursing in Italian. Harper started down the fire escape, her feet slipping on the metal grates. She was 1 floor down when she heard Isabella crying. Leonardo had brought the baby? No, that didn't make sense unless. She looked up. Leonardo was at the bedroom window, Isabella's car seat in one hand, gun in the other. Blood streaked his white shirt. "You're hit," Harper cried. "It's nothing. Keep moving." He climbed out onto the fire escape, his movements slower than before. Above him, a man appeared in the window, raising a weapon. "Behind you!" Harper screamed. Leonardo spun and fired. The man jerked backward and disappeared. They reached the second-floor landing. Leonardo stumbled, catching himself on the railing. The car seat swung dangerously, and Harper lunged to steady it. Isabella's cries had reached a fever pitch. "I've got her," Harper said, taking the car seat. "Can you make it down?" "I'll make it," but his voice was strained. They descended the final ladder to the alley. Marco appeared at the mouth of the alley, his face bloody but victorious. SUVs around front. Tony's driving. "Move." They ran or tried to. Leonardo was slowing down, his left side drenched with blood. Harper supported him as best she could while carrying Isabella's car seat, her muscles screaming. The SUV screeched around the corner. Tony had the back door open before they reached it. They piled in and Tony floored it, tires smoking. Behind them, more men emerged from Harper's building. Gunfire chased them down the street, bullets punching through metal and glass. Tony swerved wildly, taking corners at impossible speeds. "How bad?" Marco demanded, looking at Leonardo. "Bad enough." Leonardo had his hand pressed to his side, blood seeping between his fingers. "But we got what we needed." Harper still clutched the paper Sophia had given her 9 months ago. In the chaos, she'd somehow kept hold of it. She looked at the name again. Vincent Martelli. "He killed your wife," she said quietly. "He's been there all along, pretending to support you while planning to destroy you." Leonardo leaned back against the seat, his face gray with pain and fury. He kept Isabella hidden for months, fed her formula, waited until the perfect moment to stage Sophia's death and make it look like natural causes, his eyes closed. "And I trusted him. I brought him into my home, let him hold my daughter." "Where is he now?" Marco asked. "At the estate in Staten Island, where I sent him this afternoon to prepare for a meeting." Leonardo's laugh was bitter and pained. "A meeting where I was going to promote him, to give him more responsibility." The SUV merged onto the expressway. Tony was pushing 90, weaving through sparse late-night traffic. "Boss, you need a doctor," Marco said.
No hospitals.
"They'll be watching." Leonardo opened his eyes and looked at Harper. "You said you were a labor and delivery nurse. Can you handle a gunshot wound?" Harper's mind raced through her limited trauma training. "I can stabilize you. Stop the bleeding. But if the bullet's still in there, if there's internal damage, then I die. But not before I deal with Vincent." Leonardo pulled out his phone with bloody fingers. "Marco, call everyone. Every man loyal to me. Tell them to meet at the Staten Island docks. Midnight tomorrow." "Boss, you can barely stand." "Tomorrow," Leonardo repeated, his voice steel-wrapped in exhaustion. "Vincent Martelli will answer for what he did to my wife. To my daughter. To everyone caught in his path." He looked at Harper, and despite his pain, his eyes were clear and determined. "And you're going to help me prove it." They ended up at a different safe house, this one in Jersey City, overlooking the Hudson River. Harper spent 2 hours cleaning Leonardo's wound with supplies Marco brought from a veterinary clinic. The bullet had passed through cleanly, missing vital organs by inches. She stitched him up with trembling hands while Isabella slept in a makeshift crib fashioned from dresser drawers and blankets. "You're lucky," Harper said, tying off the final suture. "Another inch to the right, and you'd have bled out." "Luck has nothing to do with it." Leonardo's jaw was clenched against pain despite the whiskey Marco had poured into him. "Eves survived verus." Harper didn't want to know what worse meant in his world. By dawn, Leonardo was feverish but mobile. He sat at the kitchen table studying Sophia's note, the account numbers and names spread before him like a puzzle. Marco worked his laptop, tracing the financial trail, while Tony kept watch of the windows. Harper made coffee, with shaking hands. She'd been awake for 30 hours straight, had been shot at twice, and was now an accessory to whatever revenge plot Leonardo was planning. Her mother had called 4 times. She'd texted back saying the conference was extended, hating herself for lying. "These accounts," Marco said suddenly, tapping his screen. They're shell companies. Money moving from Rome to New York, through the Cayman Islands, then disappearing. Vincent's retirement fund, Leonardo said darkly. He was stealing from me while planning my downfall. How much? 7 million. Maybe more. Hard to trace all of it. Leonardo's fist hit the table, making coffee cups jump. Isabella stirred in her drawer crib, but didn't wake. 30 years of loyalty was a lie. Everything was a lie. Harper sat down across from him, exhaustion making her bold. Sophia figured it out. That's why she ran. She must have seen these transactions, realized Vincent was betraying you. But why hide? Leonardo looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Why not just come to me? Because she didn't know who else was involved, Harper said softly. Think about it. Vincent had access to hospital records in Rome, staff in Queens, connections everywhere. Sophia couldn't risk telling you if it meant Vincent finding out. So she disappeared completely, planning to stay hidden until she had proof, Leonardo finished. This list of accounts, these names. She was gathering evidence. But someone found her first, Marco's voice was grim. Someone who knew she was asking questions. Leonardo stood abruptly, wincing at the pain in his side. We need to find the nurse. Livia. The one who delivered Isabella in Rome. She's the key to what happened in those final hours. Boss, you should rest. I've rested enough. Leonardo grabbed his jacket, his movement stiff but determined. Sophia died 3 weeks ago, or so they claimed. Livia disappeared to South America the next day. But people don't just vanish. They leave traces. Marco was already typing. Let me check flight records, credit cards, any digital footprint. Harper watched Leonardo pace like a wounded animal, his need for answers overriding his body's need to heal. She recognized that desperation. She'd felt it during her divorce, that consuming need to understand how everything had fallen apart. There, Marco said, spinning his laptop around.
Livia Russo.
Flew to Sao Paulo 3 weeks ago, but her credit card was used in New Jersey 2 days ago. Gas station in Hoboken. Leonardo's smile was sharp as broken glass. She came back. Vincent probably called her home, thinking the danger had passed. Or she got homesick, Tony offered from the window. Brazil's a long way from Jersey. Either way, she's close. Leonardo grabbed his gun, checking the magazine. And she's going to tell us everything. Marco found Livia's last known address, a modest house in Union City, just across the Hudson from Manhattan. They left Isabella with Tony and one of the other guards, Harper arguing unsuccessfully that she should stay behind. You're the only one who saw Sophia in Queens, Leonardo said as they drove. If Livia was involved in both deliveries, you'll recognize her. We need you. The house was a narrow 2-story with peeling paint and an overgrown yard. No car in the driveway. Curtains drawn. It looked abandoned. Marco picked the lock again, apparently his signature move, and they entered quietly. The house smelled stale, like it had been empty for weeks. Mail piled up inside the door. A coffee cup on the kitchen counter had grown mold. Nobody's been here, Harper whispered, her nerves screaming at her to leave. Upstairs, Leonardo said, moving toward the staircase despite his injury. The second floor had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The first bedroom was empty except for a bare mattress. But the second... Harper gasped. Photos covered an entire wall. Pictures of Leonardo and Sophia, candid shots taken from a distance. Sophia at a cafe, at a bookstore, getting into a car. And newer photos. Isabella as a newborn, bottles and diapers on a changing table, a crib in the corner of what looked like a hospital room. She kept Isabella here, Leonardo breathed, touching one of the photos with trembling fingers. For months. Feeding her, caring for her, waiting for Vincent's orders. Harper moved to the changing table. Baby supplies were still stocked, formula, diapers, wipes. But something was off. She picked up the formula can. This brand, she said slowly. It's Italian. You can't buy it in the U.S. without special ordering. Leonardo took the can from her, reading the label. His face darkened. Vincent gave her this. He was checking on Isabella personally, making sure she stayed alive until he needed her. But where's Livia now? A floorboard creaked behind them. They spun around. Livia stood in the doorway, late 40s, dark hair streaked with gray, wearing a nurse's scrubs. She was holding a gun, and her hands were shaking. "I knew you'd come," she said, her Italian accent thick with fear. "I tried to run, but Vincent found me. He always finds everyone." "Where is he?" Leonardo's voice was deadly calm despite his own weapon being holstered. "He knows you have Sophia's list. He knows about the nurse from Queens." Livia's gun wavered toward Harper. "He sent me to make sure no loose ends remain." "You don't want to do this," Harper said, raising her hands slowly. "We know Vincent forced you to help him. We know he's been controlling everything. He paid me $50,000, tears streamed down Livia's face. "I have gambling debts. My daughter needs surgery. I didn't have a choice." "You always have a choice," Leonardo said quietly. "Sophia made her choice. She tried to protect her family. That nurse in Queens made her choice. She helped a woman in trouble. What's your choice, Livia?" The gun shook harder. "He'll kill my daughter if I don't." "He'll kill her anyway," Leonardo interrupted. "Once you've eliminated his loose ends, you become one yourself. That's how men like Vincent operate." Livia's face crumpled. The gun lowered slightly. "Tell us everything," Leonardo continued, his voice almost gentle. "Tell us what really happened to Sophia. Help us end this. I'll protect your daughter. You have my word." For a long moment, Livia stood frozen, decades of fear and desperation warring across her features. Then the gun clattered to the floor. She collapsed against the doorframe, sobbing. "She's alive. Oh God, Sophia's alive. He's keeping her somewhere, and he made me tell everyone she was dead. He made me sign the death certificate. But I saw her breathing after the delivery. I swear she was breathing." The world tilted sideways. Harper grabbed the changing table for support. Leonardo had gone absolutely still, his face drained of all color. "What did you say?" His voice was barely a whisper. Livia looked up, tears and mascara streaking her face. "Sophia survived the delivery. It was hard. There were complications, but she lived. Vincent had already paid the doctor to declare her dead. He took her somewhere while she was unconscious. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd kill my family." Leonardo swayed, and Harper moved to study him. His wound had started bleeding again, but he didn't seem to notice. "My wife is alive," he said, and the words came out broken, desperate, full of impossible hope. 3 weeks. He's kept her prisoner for 3 weeks. "Where?" Marco demanded, his gun now trained on Livia. "Where is Vincent keeping her?" Livia shook her head frantically. "I don't know. I swear I don't know. He moved her after the first week. I only know." A gunshot shattered the window. Livia jerked backward, a red stain blooming across her chest. She hit the floor, gasping, her eyes wide with shock. Harper dove for cover. More bullets punched through the windows, splintering wood and glass. Marco returned fire, his shots precise and controlled. Leonardo crawled to Livia, his own wound forgotten. He grabbed her collar.
Where?
"Where is Vincent?" Livia's mouth worked, blood bubbling on her lips.
Staaten.
Island. The old warehouse.
Duck.
7-inch. Her eyes glazed over. She went still.
No.
Leonardo shook her, but she was gone. More gunfire erupted from outside. Marco grabbed Leonardo's arm. "We have to move."
Now.
They ran down the stairs, Harper's heart slamming against her ribs. Behind them, the house was being torn apart by bullets. They burst through the back door into the overgrown yard, scrambling over a chain-link fence into the neighboring property. The SUV screeched around the corner, Tony at the wheel. They threw themselves inside, and he peeled out, leaving smoking rubber and chaos behind. Leonardo sat in the back seat, covered in blood, his own and Livia's, his face a mask of shock and rage and desperate, terrifying hope. Staten Island, he said. Dock 7. Tonight. Boss, it's a trap, Marco warned. Vincent knows we're coming. I don't care, Leonardo's voice was steel-wrapped in broken glass. My wife is alive. And I'm bringing her home. Back at the safe house, Leonardo refused medical attention. Instead, he paced the living room like a man possessed, his phone pressed to his ear, orchestrating something Harper couldn't fully comprehend. Men, weapons, strategy. His wife was alive. Harper still couldn't wrap her mind around it. She sat on the couch, holding Isabella, who'd woken hungry and fussy, and tried to process the impossible. Sophia had survived childbirth, been declared dead, and held prisoner for 3 weeks. What kind of monster did that? Everyone loyal to me meets at the warehouse district by 10, Leonardo was saying into his phone, his Italian rapid-fire and harsh. Anyone who's taken Vincent's money in the past 6 months stays away. I don't trust them. He hung up and immediately dialed another number. Harper had counted at least 15 calls so far. Marco appeared from the bedroom, his laptop under his arm. Boss, we have a problem. Another one? Leonardo's laugh was bitter. Vincent's been busy. He's called in the Calabrese family, the ones who hit us at the airport. They're mobilizing tonight too. You go in there, you're walking into a small army. Let them come. Leonardo finally sat down, his face gray with pain and exhaustion. I've spent 3 weeks mourning a woman who wasn't dead. 3 weeks while Vincent played the supportive friend, holding my daughter while planning God knows what. I'm ending this tonight, no matter the cost. Harper looked down at Isabella, who was drinking her bottle contentedly, oblivious to the violence brewing around her. What about her? What happens to your daughter if you get yourself killed? The question hung in the air like a grenade. Leonardo stared at his child, and for the first time since Livia's confession, some of the manic energy drained from him. Tony will take her. He has family in California, far from this life. She'll be safe. She doesn't need safe, Harper said quietly. She needs her father. And her mother. Then I better not die. Leonardo stood, wincing, and walked to the window overlooking the Hudson. Manhattan glittered across the water, beautiful and indifferent. Harper settled Isabella into her makeshift crib and joined him at the window. There's something I don't understand. Why keep Sophia alive? If Vincent wanted you destabilized, why not just kill her? Leverage, the word came out like poison. As long as Sophia's alive, Vincent has control. He can produce her when it's useful, use her as a bargaining chip, or kill her publicly to break me completely. Leonardo's reflection in the glass looked haunted. He's been planning this for years. This wasn't impulsive, it was methodical. Marco cleared his throat from behind them. There's more. I've been going through those account numbers Sophia documented. The money Vincent stole, it wasn't just skimming. He was funding something. Leonardo turned. Funding what? Marco opened his laptop on the coffee table. Financial records filled the screen, transactions, wire transfers, shell company names.
Aku.
He's been paying off your captains, your soldiers, promising them more money under his leadership. Half your organization has been on his payroll for months. The silence that followed was suffocating. Half, Leonardo repeated softly. Half of the men I trusted have been bought. The ones coming tonight might not all be loyal, Marco continued. Vincent could have plants in your ranks, waiting for the right moment to turn. Harper watched Leonardo absorb this betrayal, not just from Vincent, but from dozens of men he'd considered family. The weight of it seemed to age him 10 years in 10 seconds. Show me the names, Leonardo said finally. Marco pulled up a spreadsheet. Leonardo leaned over it, his finger tracing down the list. With each name, his expression hardened further.
Some he seemed to expect.
Others clearly shocked him. Danny Ricci, he murmured. I was at his wedding. His daughter's baptism, he scrolled further.
Paulo Conte.
I took him in when his father died, taught him the business. It gets worse, Marco said quietly. Look at the dates. Some of these payments started 2 years ago. Vincent's been planning this since before Sophia got pregnant. Leonardo's fist slammed down on the table, making the laptop jump. Isabella startled awake, crying. Harper immediately went to her, lifting her from the crib and soothing her with automatic motions. 2 years, Leonardo said, his voice shaking with rage. While I trusted him. While my father's memory still hung over everything we did. Vincent smiled to my face and plotted my destruction. There's something else. Marco pointed to a transaction dated 3 weeks ago, the day after Sophia's supposed death. $50,000 went to a doctor in Rome. Another $100,000 to a morgue director. These are the payoffs for the death certificate, the cremation story. Harper looked up from Isabella. Can you trace where the money came from originally? Marco's fingers flew across the keyboard. It's layered through multiple accounts, but… Yeah. It comes from your family's legitimate businesses, boss. Vincent's been embezzling from the restaurants, the construction company, the import-export business. He's been stealing your legal money to fund your illegal overthrow. Leonardo laughed, a cold, empty sound. Brilliant. He uses my own money to destroy me. Uses my own men. Keeps my wife prisoner with my own daughter as bait. He turned to face them, and Harper saw something dangerous crystallizing in his eyes. He's thought of everything. Almost everything, Harper said softly. He didn't account for me.
He didn't know Sophia gave me that list.
Without it, you'd never have known about the embezzlement, never connected the pieces. Sophia always was smarter than everyone in the room, Leonardo said, and his voice cracked. She documented everything, left a trail only someone outside our world could follow. She knew if Vincent killed her, I'd be too blinded by grief to see the betrayal. But a stranger, a nurse with no stake in our war, might ask questions. The apartment's buzzer rang, sharp and sudden. Everyone froze. Marco moved to the intercom, his hand on his gun. Yeah. It's me, Tony's voice crackled through the speaker. I got something. Let me up. Moments later, Tony entered, carrying a ledger, an actual physical book, leather-bound and worn. Found this in Vincent's car. He left it parked at the warehouse when he went to set up. Figured it might be useful. Leonardo took the ledger with trembling hands. He opened it, and Harper saw page after page of handwritten notes. Names, dates, amounts. A complete record of Vincent's conspiracy. He kept a backup, Leonardo breathed. In case the digital records were discovered, he had physical proof of who owed him loyalty. Marco leaned over his shoulder. This is everyone. Every captain, every soldier, every judge, and cop he's bought. It's a complete map of his network. And it's written in his handwriting, Tony added. Can't deny it's his. Leonardo clutched the ledger like a lifeline. This is what we need. This proves everything, the embezzlement, the bribes, the conspiracy. With this and Sophia's account numbers, Vincent can't talk his way out. Assuming we survive tonight, Marco said grimly. Leonardo closed the ledger and looked at each of them in turn. Marco, Tony, Harper. I'm not asking any of you to come with me to Staten Island. Vincent will have 20, maybe 30 men waiting. The Calabrese family will have more. It's suicide. With respect, boss, Marco said. You're stuck with us. Tony nodded. Been with you since we were kids. Not stopping now. They both looked at Harper. She shifted Isabella in her arms, feeling the weight of their expectation. I'm not a fighter, she said. I'm a nurse.
A mom. I have a son who needs me.
I know, Leonardo said quietly. And I would never ask you to come. You've done more than enough. Marco will take you somewhere safe until this is over. Harper looked down at Isabella, this baby who'd been hidden, manipulated, used as a pawn in a brutal game. Then she thought of Sophia, alive and prisoner somewhere, counting down the hours until someone realized the truth. I'm coming, Harper heard herself say. Not to fight. But Sophia might be hurt. After 3 weeks imprisoned, after what Vincent's done to her, she'll need medical attention. And if you're walking into a trap, someone needs to stay back with Isabella. Someone she trusts. Leonardo stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. You do that? Risk your life for people you barely know. Harper met his eyes. Sophia trusted me with her secret. With her daughter's lullaby. With that list that's kept me alive this long. I'm not abandoning her now. Not when she's so close to being free. For a moment, Leonardo's carefully constructed armor cracked. She saw the grief, the hope, the desperate love for a wife he'd thought he'd lost. "Thank you," he whispered. The clock on the wall read 8:47 p.m. In just over an hour, they would drive to Staten Island. To Dock 7. To whatever trap Vincent had prepared. Harper held Isabella closer and prayed Sophia Corvey had survived 3 weeks of hell. Because tonight, one way or another, this ended. The Staten Island waterfront was a graveyard of abandoned warehouses and rusting cranes, remnants of a shipping industry that had moved elsewhere. Dock 7 sat at the far end, isolated from the main port, surrounded by dark water and darker shadows. Perfect for an ambush. Leonardo's convoy, 3 SUVs carrying 12 men, approached with headlights off, navigating by moonlight and memory. Harper sat in the middle vehicle with Isabella's car seat strapped beside her, Marco at the wheel, Leonardo in the passenger seat checking his weapons with methodical precision. "You stay in the car," Leonardo said without looking back at Harper. "No matter what happens. If things go bad, Marco drives you, and Isabella straight to the secondary safe house in Connecticut." "Understood."
Understood. Harper liegt.
She had no intention of running if Sophia needed her. They parked 100 yards from Dock 7, hidden behind a collapsed warehouse. Leonardo's men moved out silently, spreading into defensive positions. Harper watched them disappear into shadows, professional and deadly. Leonardo paused at the car door, looking back at Isabella. The baby slept peacefully, her tiny fist curled against her cheek. He touched her hair with infinite gentleness. "If I don't come back," he started. "You'll come back," Harper interrupted firmly. "Because your daughter needs you. Both your daughters need you, Isabella and the wife you're about to save." Leonardo's smile was brief and sad. Then he was gone, melting into the darkness with Marco and Tony flanking him. Harper was alone with Isabella and the driver, a young guy named Sal who couldn't be more than 25. He kept his hand on his gun, his eyes scanning constantly. Through the windshield, Harper could see Dock 7, a long concrete pier stretching into the black water. A single warehouse sat at its end, light bleeding through cracks in its walls. She could make out figures moving inside. Voices drifted across the water, indistinct but tense. Then Leonardo appeared at the warehouse entrance, alone and exposed, his hands visible and empty. Harper's heart lurched into her throat. "Vincent," Leonardo's voice carried across the empty dock. "I'm here. Let's finish this." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the warehouse doors opened fully, and a man emerged. Vincent Martelli looked like somebody's favorite uncle, silver-haired, distinguished, wearing an expensive suit that made him seem more boardroom than battlefield. But his smile was cold as he surveyed Leonardo. "Leo," he called out, his voice warm and false. "I was hoping you'd be smart enough to stay away." "Where is she?" Leonardo took a step forward. "Where's Sophia?" Vincent's laugh echoed across the water. "Your wife? You mean the woman whose funeral you attended 3 weeks ago? You're not thinking clearly, my boy. Grief does that. Livia talked before she died. I know everything. The embezzlement, the bribes, the fake death certificate." Leonardo held up the ledger, visible even from Harper's distance. "And I have your insurance policy. Every name, every payment, everything you've done." Vincent's smile faltered. "That's private property. It's evidence of treason." Leonardo threw the ledger onto the ground between them. 30 years, Vincent. 30 years my father trusted you. I trusted you. And you repaid that trust by stealing from us, corrupting our people, and taking my wife. Your wife was weak. Vincent's false warmth evaporated into venom. She discovered my accounts, started asking questions. She was going to tell you everything, ruin years of careful planning. I couldn't allow that. So you terrorized her. Made her hide her own pregnancy. Kept her daughter prisoner for months. I kept Isabella safe. Vincent corrected.
From you.
From your sentimentality and weakness. You're turning this family legitimate, Leonardo. Legitimate? Your father would spit on your grave. Someone had to preserve what we really are. Harper's hands clenched on the steering wheel. She could see more figures emerging from the warehouse. 10, 15, 20 men. All armed. The Calabrese family members were distinguishable by their matching dark jackets. This was the trap. Vincent had never intended to negotiate. Last chance, Leonardo said quietly. Tell me where Sophia is, and I'll make your death quick. Vincent's laugh was genuine this time. You're outnumbered 3-1, bleeding from a gunshot wound, and you're threatening me? Leo, I taught you better than that. He raised his hand. Leonardo dove sideways as gunfire erupted. The dock exploded into chaos, muzzle flashes, shouting, the sharp crack of bullets hitting concrete. Leonardo's hidden men emerged from their positions, returning fire with precision. In the SUV, Harper threw herself over Isabella's car seat, shielding the baby with her body. Sal had his window down, firing controlled bursts at the warehouse. The battle was savage and brief. Leonardo's men were outnumbered but better trained, taking cover and picking their targets carefully. Vincent's people were sloppy, aggressive, firing wildly. Harper risked a glance through the windshield. Leonardo had reached cover behind a shipping container, Marco beside him. Tony was flanking left, taking down 2 of Vincent's men with efficient headshots. Then Harper saw her. A woman stumbled out a side door of the warehouse, dark hair matted, face bruised, wearing a hospital gown. She looked disoriented, barely able to walk, but Harper recognized her from the photo in Livia's house. Sophia. She was trying to escape during the confusion, but Vincent's men hadn't noticed her yet. She stumbled toward the edge of the dock, swaying dangerously close to the water. Harper made a split-second decision. She grabbed the first aid kit from under the seat and threw open the car door. Miss Wells, no. Sal shouted, but Harper was already running. She stayed low, using abandoned equipment for cover, her nurses' training guiding her movements. Don't think. Just move.
Get to the patient.
Sophia had collapsed near a pile of rotting rope, 20 feet from the warehouse. Harper reached her just as one of Vincent's men spotted them both. Get down. Harper threw herself over Sophia as bullets chewed into the dock beside them. The gunman's head snapped back. Marco had seen them, taken the shot. Sophia looked up at Harper with unfocused eyes.
Who?
Who are you? I'm the nurse from Queens. The one you gave the list to. Harper checked Sophia's pulse. Rapid but strong. Your husband is here. Leonardo came for you. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. Isabella? My baby. She's safe. She's beautiful. And she's waiting for you. Harper slipped an arm under Sophia's shoulders. But we need to move. Can you stand? Sophia nodded, and together they struggled to their feet. The battle raged around them. Leonardo's men had pushed Vincent's forces back into the warehouse, but the Calabrese family was regrouping. Harper half-carried Sophia toward the SUV. Each step felt like a mile. Sophia was weak, malnourished, barely conscious. They were 10 feet from the vehicle when Vincent appeared, stepping from behind a crane. His suit was torn, his face bleeding, but his gun was steady. The nurse, he said, almost admiringly. You've been a persistent problem, Miss Wells. Harper pushed Sophia behind her. It's over, Vincent. Leonardo has your ledger. Everyone knows what you've done. It's never over until I say it is. Vincent's finger tightened on the trigger. A gunshot rang out. But Vincent didn't fire. He stumbled forward, surprise etched on his face, a red stain spreading across his back. Behind him, Leonardo stood with his gun raised, his face a mask of cold fury. For Sophia, Leonardo said. For my daughter. For every lie you told. Vincent collapsed to his knees, then fell forward onto the dock. Leonardo didn't spare him another glance. He ran to Sophia, catching her as Harper's strength finally gave out. Sophia collapsed into his arms, sobbing against his chest. I thought I'd lost you, Leonardo whispered, cradling her face. I thought you were dead. He kept me in a room, Sophia gasped. 3 weeks. Said he'd kill Isabella if I didn't cooperate. Said he'd kill you. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. No, Leonardo kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips.
You survived.
You left me the evidence. You saved us all. The gunfire had stopped. Harper looked around. Vincent's men were surrendering or dead. The Calabrese family members were retreating to their vehicles, clearly deciding this battle wasn't worth the cost. Marco appeared beside them, breathing hard. Police are coming. We need to move. Leonardo lifted Sophia into his arms like she weighed nothing, despite his own injury. They made it to the SUV, and Harper climbed in after them. Sophia's eyes fell on Isabella's car seat. She reached out with a trembling hand, touching her daughter's face. My baby. My sweet baby. Isabella's eyes opened, focusing on her mother for the first time in 3 weeks. And then she smiled, that beautiful, gummy baby smile that made everything worthwhile. Sophia broke down completely, sobbing as she carefully lifted Isabella from the car seat and held her close. I'm here. Mama's here. I'll never leave you again. Leonardo wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a moment, in the back of an SUV fleeing a crime scene, they were just a family reunited. Harper looked away, giving them privacy, her own tears streaming down her face. The convoy sped away from Staten Island, leaving behind sirens and bodies and the wreckage of Vincent's betrayal. But they'd done it.
Sophia was alive.
Isabella was safe. And somehow, impossibly, Harper had helped save them both. 3 days later, Harper stood in Leonardo's Manhattan penthouse, watching morning light paint the city gold. The space was massive, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, marble floors, art that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. She felt completely out of place. Sophia was recovering in the master bedroom, under the care of a private doctor who asked no questions. The physical damage, malnutrition, dehydration, bruising, would heal in weeks. The psychological trauma would take longer. Harper had sat with her the first night, holding her hand while she wept and talked about the darkness of that room, the constant fear, Vincent's cold promises that her family would die if she resisted. Leonardo hadn't left Sophia's side except to make the necessary calls. Vincent's death was being ruled a mob shooting, which it was technically. The ledger had been anonymously delivered to the FBI, along with Sophia's financial records. Half of Leonardo's organization was about to face federal indictment. We're rebuilding, Leonardo had told Harper yesterday. Smaller.
Cleaner.
The men who stayed loyal are the ones worth keeping. Now he appeared in the living room doorway, Isabella in his arms. The baby had barely left her parents' presence since the reunion, as if they were all afraid to let each other out of sight. Coffee, Leonardo offered, nodding toward the kitchen. Harper followed him, accepting a cup of something that probably cost more than her usual grocery budget. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Isabella grab at her father's tie. The police have questions, Leonardo said finally. About the airport shooting. About Queens General. About Staten Island. Harper's stomach dropped. Am I going to be arrested? No, Leonardo's smile was slight. I have good lawyers. Very good lawyers. Your involvement was as a civilian victim caught in mob violence. You were kidnapped, held against your will, and heroically saved a kidnapping victim. That's the story. That's what everyone will say. And the truth. The truth is messy. Leonardo set down his coffee. The truth is you helped dismantle a conspiracy, saved my daughter twice, and brought my wife home alive. The truth is I owe you everything. Harper looked away, uncomfortable with the weight of his gratitude. I just did what anyone would do.
No.
Most people would have stayed in their seat on that plane. Would have walked away at the first sign of danger. Leonardo turned to face her fully. You stayed. Even when bullets were flying. Even when it wasn't your fight. You stayed. Sophia asked me to, Harper said softly. 9 months ago, without knowing she was asking. She trusted me with her secret. I couldn't let her down. Leonardo was quiet for a moment, studying her with those dark, intelligent eyes. Marco is setting up a trust fund for your son. Full college tuition, living expenses. It's non-negotiable. I can't accept. You can and you will. His tone left no room for argument. Mason will never want for anything. Neither will you. There's also a position available if you want it. Harper blinked. A position? Isabella needs a nanny. Someone we can trust completely. Someone she already knows and loves. Leonardo shifted the baby to his other arm. The pay is generous. You'd live here. There's a suite with plenty of room for Mason. Private school for him, whatever he needs. You'd be part of the family. The offer hung in the air like a golden apple. A penthouse apartment. Financial security. No more struggling to pay rent. No more clearance rack clothes. No more lying awake at night calculating how to stretch her paycheck. But also, Leonardo's world. The violence that had chased them across 2 states. The constant danger lurking at the edges of power and money. I need to think about it, Harper said carefully. Leonardo nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Harper saw something in his expression, disappointment, maybe, or loneliness. For all his wealth and power, Leonardo Corvi was a man who'd learned the hard way that trust was the rarest currency of all. There's something else, he continued. The old phone. The one with the photo of Sophia from 9 months ago. Did you ever find it? Harper nodded. In my apartment after. Everything. The photo is still there. Sophia holding newborn Isabella, both of them alive and healthy. Proof of when she really gave birth. Can I see it? Harper pulled out her recovered phone and navigated to the encrypted folder. There it was, Sophia, exhausted but smiling, cradling a tiny infant. The timestamp read February 14th, 6:52 a.m. Leonardo stared at the image for a long moment, his jaw working. I wasn't there, he whispered. The most important moment of my daughter's life, and I wasn't there. You're here now, Harper said. That's what matters. He looked up at her, and she saw the cracks in his armor. The guilt, the grief, the desperate need to make everything right. Is it enough? After everything she's been through, everything I failed to protect her from? Asked Sophia. Not me. As if summoned, Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway. She looked fragile still, too thin, purple shadows under her eyes, but upright and determined. She'd insisted on showering and dressing herself that morning, reclaiming small pieces of autonomy. Leonardo, she said softly. Can I talk to Harper alone? Leonardo hesitated, then nodded. He kissed Sophia's forehead gently and left with Isabella, closing the door behind him. Sophia sat at the kitchen island, and Harper joined her. For a moment, neither spoke. I remember you, Sophia said finally. From that night. You were kind when you didn't have to be. You didn't judge me for being alone, for the fake name, for any of it. You were terrified. Anyone could see that. I was. Sophia's hands trembled as she wrapped them around a coffee cup. Vincent had called that morning, made a veiled threat about the baby. I knew then that staying with Leonardo meant Isabella would become a target. So I ran. You protected her. I tried to, Sophia's voice broke. But then Vincent found me anyway. 3 days after I gave birth, while I was recovering at a friend's apartment in Brooklyn. He took me, drugged me, kept me in that room for 3 weeks. He said Leonardo thought I was dead, said he'd kill Isabella if I didn't cooperate with his plans. Harper reached across and took Sophia's hand. I need you to stay, Sophia said suddenly, fiercely. I need someone I can trust with my daughter. Someone who isn't part of Leonardo's world, who doesn't have ulterior motives. Someone who proved they'd risk everything for a stranger. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. Please, Harper. Stay with us. Harper thought of her tiny apartment in Astoria. Her quiet life. Her careful routines designed to keep Mason safe and stable after the chaos of divorce. Then she thought of Isabella's smile. of Leonardo's desperate hope, of Sophia's courage in the face of unimaginable horror. And she thought of the truth she'd been avoiding. She was already part of this family. Had been since the moment she hummed that lullaby on the plane. "I need to talk to my son first," Harper said slowly. "And my mother. This decision affects them too." Sophia nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Of course. But Sophia?" Harper squeezed her hand. "I'm honored you'd trust me with Isabella. With your family. Whatever I decide, that means everything." Sophia smiled, a real smile this time, the first Harper had seen from her. "You saved my life. My daughter's life. My marriage. I'd trust you with anything." Later that afternoon, Harper stood in the penthouse's guest bedroom, the one Leonardo had designated as hers if she stayed. It was bigger than her entire apartment, with an ensuite bathroom and a view of Central Park that took her breath away. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Mason misses you. When are you coming home?" Home. Harper looked around the luxurious room, then out at the glittering city. She thought about private schools and trust funds and security that went beyond locked doors. But she also thought about gunfire and conspiracies and the kind of enemies who would kill a nurse for knowing too much. She thought about her son, who'd already lost his father to divorce. Could she risk him losing his mother to violence? Her finger hovered over the call button. Outside the window, the city hummed with life and possibility and danger. Harper took a deep breath and made her choice. Harper packed her small suitcase with methodical precision, each item folded and placed with care. The guest bedroom felt even more enormous in the late afternoon light, shadows stretching across the marble floors like reaching fingers. She'd made her decision. Mason needed stability. Needed a mother who came home every night without bullet holes in her clothes. Needed normalcy, soccer practice, and homework and boring, beautiful routine. Leonardo's world was intoxicating, the luxury, the purpose, the feeling of mattering.
But it was also deadly.
Vincent was gone, but there would always be another Vincent. Another threat. Another war. She couldn't do that to her son. "You're leaving." Harper turned to find Sophia in the doorway, Isabella asleep in her arms. The baby had finally relaxed enough to nap without being held constantly, a small sign of healing. "I have to," Harper said softly. "Mason needs me. And your family needs to heal without outsiders around." "You're not an outsider," Sophia entered the room, settling onto the edge of the bed. "You're the reason we're all alive." "I'm the reason you almost got killed," Harper corrected. "If I hadn't been on that plane, if I hadn't hummed that song, then Leonardo never would have found the evidence. Never would have known I was alive." Sophia's voice was fierce. "Don't you dare take responsibility for Vincent's evil. You saved us, Harper. All of us." Harper sat beside her, looking down at Isabella's peaceful face. "She deserves better than what I can give her. She needs someone trained in security, someone who understands your world. She needs someone who loves her," Sophia said simply. "Everything else can be taught." They sat in silence, watching Isabella sleep. Outside, the city began its transition to evening, lights flickering on, traffic thickening, millions of lives intersecting and diverging. "I've called a car," Harper said finally. "It'll take me to Queens to pick up Mason, then home. Leonardo said he'd send security to watch my building for a few weeks, just to be safe." Sophia nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Thank you. For everything you've done. For everything you are." They embraced carefully, mindful of the baby between them. Then Harper picked up her suitcase and walked toward the door, each step feeling both right and utterly wrong. Leonardo was waiting in the foyer, his expression unreadable. He changed into casual clothes, jeans and a black sweater, looking less like a mob boss and more like a tired father. "The car's downstairs," he said. "Marco will escort you." "That's not necessary." "It's necessary." His tone left no room for argument. "At least until we're certain no one is looking for revenge. Give us 2 weeks. Please." Harper nodded. 2 weeks of protection she could accept. Leonardo pulled an envelope from his pocket. The trust fund papers for Mason. And a check for your immediate needs. Considerate payment for services rendered. Harper took the envelope with trembling hands. I don't know what to say. Say you'll visit. Leonardo's smile was sad. Say Isabella won't forget the woman who saved her life twice. Never, Harper whispered. I could never forget her. She moved toward the elevator, her suitcase suddenly feeling impossibly heavy. The doors opened with a soft chime, polished brass reflecting her face back at her, tired, scared, but resolute. She stepped inside. The doors began to close. And then Isabella screamed. Not the angry cry of hunger or discomfort. The desperate, inconsolable wail of terror and loss. The elevator doors bounced back open. Harper turned to see Sophia trying frantically to soothe the baby, but Isabella was arching away from her mother, her tiny arms reaching toward Harper, her face purple with distress. No, no, Bambina, Sophia murmured, rocking her. It's okay, Mama's here. But Isabella wouldn't be comforted. Her cries escalated, raw and primal, the sound of a child who'd already lost too much and couldn't bear to lose again. Harper stood frozen in the elevator, her heart shattering. Leonardo moved toward his daughter, tried to take her, but Isabella fought him too. She wanted Harper. Only Harper. Please, Sophia said, and Harper couldn't tell if she was talking to the baby or to her. Please don't go. Harper looked at the elevator buttons, at her suitcase, at the life she'd planned, quiet, safe, predictable. Then she looked at Isabella, still reaching for her with desperate fingers. And she thought about what Sophia had said. She needs someone who loves her. Harper did love her. Impossibly, after only days together, she loved this baby who'd been hidden and manipulated and used as a pawn. Loved her fierce parents who'd fought through betrayal and violence to find each other. Loved the broken, dangerous, beautiful family they were trying to build. Mason would understand. Or he would eventually. Because Harper was about to teach him the most important lesson she knew. Sometimes family isn't about blood. Sometimes it's about choice. Harper stepped out of the elevator. She walked to Sophia and carefully took Isabella from her arms. The baby's cries immediately dissolved into hiccups, then silence. She burrowed against Harper's shoulder, her tiny fist clutching Harper's shirt like a lifeline. 2 conditions, Harper said, her voice shaking. First, Mason's safety is non-negotiable. If there's ever a credible threat, he goes to my mother's house until it's clear. No arguments. Leonardo nodded immediately. Done. Second, I'm not just a nanny. If I'm going to be part of this family, I need honesty. No more secrets, no more protection through ignorance. I deserve to know what's happening. Sophia and Leonardo exchanged glances. Then Leonardo extended his hand. You have my word. No secrets. You're family now, Harper. And family protects each other. Harper shook his hand, sealing the promise. Sophia was crying openly now, but she was smiling too. Thank you. God, thank you. Don't thank me yet, Harper said, shifting Isabella to her other shoulder. You're getting me and a very energetic 3-year-old boy. Your penthouse is about to get a lot louder. Leonardo laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine. Good. This place has been too quiet for too long. The elevator doors closed behind Harper, heading down without her. She watched it go, watched her old life disappear into the shaft, and felt something settle in her chest. Not certainty. She wasn't naive enough to think this would be easy. But rightness. The sense that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. So, Sophia said, wiping her eyes. When do we meet Mason? Tomorrow, Harper decided. I'll bring him here after preschool. Let him see his new home. His new family. The word felt strange and wonderful on her tongue. His new sister, Leonardo added softly, touching Isabella's hair. Isabella had fallen back asleep against Harper's shoulder, her breathing even and peaceful. Trusting. Safe. Outside the windows, The city glittered in the gathering darkness. Somewhere out there, Harper's old apartment waited, full of memories and modest dreams. Her mother would need explanations. Mason would need reassurance. There would be logistics and complications and 1,000 difficult conversations. But here, in this moment, in this penthouse that smelled of coffee and hope and new beginnings, Harper felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt home. Sophia slipped her arm through Harper's, and Leonardo moved to her other side. Together they stood at the window, watching the city lights bloom like stars. A broken mob boss and his traumatized wife. A single mother and her brave son. A baby who'd survived impossible odds. Not a traditional family. Not a safe family. But family nonetheless. "It's going to be complicated," Harper said. "Everything worthwhile is," Sophia replied. Leonardo looked at Harper, and in his eyes she saw gratitude, respect, and something that looked like wonder. "You saved my family," he said quietly. "And now you're part of it. I promise you, Harper Wells, we will spend the rest of our lives proving you made the right choice." Isabella stirred against Harper's shoulder, making a small, contented sound. Harper smiled, her tears finally falling. "I already know I did." The elevator chimed softly somewhere behind them, arriving and departing, carrying strangers to their destinations. But Harper stayed exactly where she was. Because sometimes the bravest thing you could do wasn't walking away.
Sometimes it was staying.
Sometimes it was choosing love over safety, connection over comfort, and family, messy, dangerous, beautiful family, over everything else. Harper Wells had boarded a plane alone, running from nothing toward nothing. She was ending that journey as part of something extraordinary. And as Isabella's tiny hand curled around her finger, as Sophia leaned her head on Harper's shoulder, as Leonardo's protective presence surrounded them all, Harper knew with absolute certainty. This was exactly where she belonged. The end.